Hello and a big welcome to this first instalment, Finding Dad Rock's greatest album of all time. Chart 1, Queen. Normally I'm a classical music guy, but I've decided to turn back the clock. Hang on, should that be wind back the clock or wind forward the clock? I've decided to do without clock metaphors altogether and re-listen to the music I used to adore. Which means I'm going to rank each of Queen's studio albums. How do I rank them? Through science, numbers, and objective truth. And I know that it's done that way because I used a calculator.
That's fantastic!
And I have to say, I was surprised at the quality of Queen's work, even after so many years of classical music saturation. If you want a real quality rock band, well, this is it. What's more, as we'll find out, I've gained a greater appreciation for Queen's musical range after so many years. However, we have to begin this retrospective at the bottom, so I'm ashamed to say, in last place comes... It's a film soundtrack album. Honest to God, I fell asleep marking this, so this remains in last place unmarked, and rather than justify that, allow me to play a bit of the album. I rest my case. Or is it my pillowcase?
Look at that!
Next up comes Hot Space, an album that totally confused me as a young teenager. Queen fan that I undoubtedly was, I excitedly bought this album, rushed home to put it on my turntable, only to hear... Look at me. I can still sense that disappointment all these years later. Queen and disco just don't really sound like total bedfellows. Is it any surprise that the best song on the album feels out of tune with all the rest? This is of course the track with David Bowie that featured the classic bass line. The Vanilla Ice totally ripped off by adding a single extra beat.
Ding ding ding. That's the way theirs goes. Ours goes ding 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 diggy ding 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 diggy ding ding. That little bitty change.
Now the great composers had to deal with fakes and charlatans. I've made a video on that one, but I'm trying to imagine someone approaching Beethoven with, "Nah, mate, yours is da-da-da-dun, but mine is da-da-da-dun-dun." Next up comes Kind of Magic, which is, maybe no surprise, another soundtrack album, or at least half of it is, the unofficial soundtrack album to Highlander, a rather lame 80s film. One of those films that's so bad it's actually funny to rewatch. Hats off, or pants down, to the lamest stunt double I've ever seen. I mean, is that even a stunt? Don't want to go off on a tangent here, but does that guy even look like Sean Connery? Or even like a swordsman? Apologies for that descent down the rabbit hole. Back to Queen's third worst album. Still a solid album, suffers a little from that 80s veneer that poisoned a lot of 80s culture, like film, music, and 80s haircuts. It's a kind of magic. Best song on the album? And hats off here to Roger Taylor, because he composed it. I mean, Roger Taylor really is the Ringo Starr of Queen, excuse me saying this. And yet, here he is, writing one of the best songs on the album. And he's already had a number one. All we hear is Radio Gaga. Plus he's an excellent drummer, and he's very good looking as well. And that's the least talented member of Queen. Next up, The Miracle. And is it just me, or does this song... Feel something move. Ghostbusters! Maybe it's just me. Anyhow, another Roger Taylor track, weakest track on the album, but Queen do it well, like Queen do almost everything well, and it's worth drilling down on that. What does that actually mean? Well, they're brilliant singers. Exceptional instrumentalists, really good use of harmonic vocals. In fact, proper harmonic complexity in a lot of their songs, and harmonic complexity that sounds simple, it's always a sign of good songwriting. Massive variety of musical styles and understanding of musical history. Seaside Rendezvous. Give us a kiss. Brilliant performers, amazing recording artists with real attention to detail and good technicians, and really good organisers of their own brand, which can be annoying because it can produce things like...
Now, I want you to clap on the third beat.
Wow, is that how they came up with We Will Rock You? Amazing. But no time for more film rabbit holes. Next, in 11th, Queen's second album, named rather inventively Queen 2. They actually asked David Bowie to produce this album, but he was too busy. It's one of those albums with die-hard supporters, but to me, sounds like the band haven't quite yet found their sound, particularly Freddie Mercury, whose exploration of a fancy landscape sounds less Bohemian Rhapsody and more Dungeons & Dragons. to these old ears. Anyhow, it sounds like Freddie hasn't quite found his niche yet, like Queen haven't found their niche yet. They even sometimes manage to sound like The Who. Can't leave the album without mentioning the cover, shot by Mick Rock, responsible for a lot of the great album covers. And actually, that album cover became the inspiration for a few years later, the Bohemian Rhapsody video.
Tremendous!
Next up comes the last album they made with Freddie Mercury alive. Very impressive of Queen to have made an album of this quality whilst Freddie Mercury is obviously dying. And I tried to be impartial and unemotional when I was marking this, but it was hard, even all these years after Freddie's death. I was surprised. These Are the Days and The Show Must Go On still hit hard after all this time. It's got its bad moments. It's got one really bad moment, Delilah, written about Freddie Mercury's cat. When you pee all over my Chippendale suite. Yep, he really did say, when you pee all over my Chippendale suite. Oh my indeed, should have remained in the cat litter tray. Talking of leftovers, it's a beautiful day. This was the only Queen album I was totally unfamiliar with. It was made after Freddie Mercury's death. I wasn't into Queen by then. I assumed it was a rip-off and I never listened to it. So here I was expecting it to be tasteless and awful. And it just wins you over immediately. It's a well-executed album. They recorded a lot of stuff with Freddie before he died, and then they've gone picking through the back catalogue. Next up at number 8 comes The Works, although I think you could probably call this the reworks. Some of this album I heard hot off the press, watching Queen touring the album live as a teenager. But to these wizened ears today, this sounds much more like Queen, going back to some more well-trusted song styles, shall we say, after the relative failure of Hot Space. Hot Spaces? Hit Spaces? It's Spotlights? Queen, of course, famous for having every member of the band that's written at number 1. And in this case, it's John Deacon. I want to break free. Good old, dependable Deaky. The guy who wrote... And... Not to mention... one of the most famous bass lines in the world, along with... All that aside, this is Queen's third most creative band member. You know where I'm going with this one.
Exactly.
Number 7, and pipping the works by 3/100ths of a very scientific point, the original Queen, the first album. What a really well-made album this is. First track, the first album, it's come out like a perfectly formed Queen song. A couple of weaker moments, like when you think you might have accidentally tuned into an American Christian rock station. Next up comes Queen's 7th album, Jazz. Caused a bit of controversy at the time, I seem to remember. Fat Bottom Girls was the one that caused a lot of fuss, but I always thought Bicycle Race was an odd song. Freddie Mercury basically coming out as bisexual? You say black, I say white. Bicycle, bisexual, get it? Give me a choice. I don't know, I'm guessing, but I think he might have been gay. I want to ride my bicycle. It's a sign of how cocky and cocksure Queen really were, that they could approach with these controversies and not really care. Some of them I'm not sure they'd have got away with today. Do you have a gay Western pop singer singing this today? So an interesting album, lots of variety, lots of well-honed stuff, but also some really good raw stuff in there. And Don't Stop Me Now is a great example of that. Half that song, it's just vocal, piano and bass guitar. As simple and effective as Roger Deakins' Pullover. 5 comes The Game, great solid album, and a showcase of really how good Queen's songwriting ability is. The basic axis creatively between them is Freddie Mercury and Brian May. Freddie Mercury covering keyboards and Brian May more guitar-based stuff. Now, look at this album, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Elvis-inspired guitar piece. You would have thought Brian May. No, it's been written on guitar, sure enough, by Freddie Mercury in the bath. He probably couldn't fit the piano in there. And then have a listen to Save Me. Sounds like a classic Freddie Mercury song. It started off so well. But no, it's a Brian May song. And that really does show how broad their songwriting talents were, and also how they learnt off each other. Master craftsmen, pretty much, excuse the pun, at the top of their game. Great album, not such a great cover. Brian May especially, those specs aren't saying cool, they're saying... Next up in these dad rock rankings comes Sheer Heart Attack, their third album chronologically. Listening back to these albums all these years later, I think there's something distinctive and fundamental about Queen that really begins here, and I think the principal agent of that quality is Freddie Mercury. And this is something I appreciate more now I'm older. Queen show such versatility in musical forms. There's opera, of course, the classical piano, but also Gilbert and Sullivan, that Edwardian sound. There's Cole Porter, Noel Coward, and even on this album, playing American vaudeville. In third place comes an album I honestly assumed would take silver, Day at the Races. Perhaps that's because there's always a feeling of honorary second about this album, constantly measured against its elder and better brother. Which means a song like Someone to Love, great as it is, can't help but feel even after all these years like a lesser follow-up to Bohemian Rhapsody.
Sounds very pretty.
In second place comes the album that terrifies Stewie and Family Guy. There's some classic tracks on this album. We Are the Champions, classic Queen, and classic of them to sing that at Live Aid, an event about the starving poor of Africa. And there's Freddie singing. When I was a kid in the late 70s and early 80s, Queen were a really unfashionable band. The music press hated them. And this arrogance or confidence, however you want to call it, that's part of the reason. Really, the album, honorary mention to Brian May. He really shines on this album. A lot of good tracks, All Dead, and a really wonderful It's Late.
Fantastic energy there.
And at number one, and rather appropriately for someone who principally loves classical music, comes A Night at the Opera. If you don't know this album, find it now, get some headphones and listen to it immediately. It still sounds surprisingly good after all these years and after all my own acquaintance with such different music. It's brilliantly written, performed, recorded. Freddie Mercury sounds to my ears half a century later like he's pushing the actual boundaries of what rock and pop is. Some of the harmonies in the Prophet song are just brilliant.
Because it's pretty.
Gotta say, to my ears these days, Queen are about the only rock band that can sound like a classical trio. Bits of Love of My Life certainly sound very classical, and I mean in that Mozart sense classical. Not even to mention Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, that side 2 is one of the best single sides on an album ever. Just take one of the weaker songs on the side, Good Company. It's a Brian May song, and it really is a paean to not just the ukulele but the guitar.
Take good care of what you've got, my father said to me.
Obviously, ukulele song, George Formby and all that, but he's even recreated a Dixieland jazz band just using guitars. So, for example, he's made a guitar sound like a clarinet. Or he's made another one sound like a trombone. And do remember, children, this is before the age of digital sampling. These were all hard-made in the studio with a guitar. Great album, sounds amazing with headphones all these decades later. Brilliantly produced, such hard work put in by real creative people. That's one of the things about Queen. They're a highly diligent band. Question is, how well will Night at the Opera fare in the grand final? Meanwhile, our next instalment is... Ooh. We hope you will enjoy the show. Rock on, dads.